Okay, now I'm going to put the horizontal marks on this sphere. So part of how I do this is I have two bolts that I slide up through here, and I put a square over the top, and I brace this to I bolt it to my bench. If I can get the bolt to go on there, the nut to go on there. So I bolt it to my bench like so. I've actually done videos where it shows this process, but this one with the bigger sphere, I figured it's a little bit more significant because it's a larger sphere. You can actually see what's happening. Then I take another square, adjustable square like this, and I place it on top of this square like so. Come on. There we go. So I place it on here like so. Now you remember how this was on it was on an additional Lazy Susan, and I had this one taped off. Well, I've untaped it, so now that I can spin it this way, and I can bring it here. Now I've established the circumference. There's multiple ways to determine what the circumference is. I mean, you can do it by math, or you can do it with the square. If you do it with the square, you just have to find the area of where the square is touching it. Maybe make a mark, and then run your tape around where that mark is. Because where it's touching right here is the largest part of the sphere. And I determined that this sphere, it actually should have been 31.41 inches, but you have shrinkage. It's actually 31.25 inches in the circumference. So then I divide that by 2, which is from the top to the bottom, and then I divide it by 2, and then I decide what I'm going to make my height in. And I've essentially decided, well, first of all, I established where center would be. Center is, give or take a little bit, 7/16 of an inch down from that point. So what I do is I take this pin tool and I control it. Now I've already marked the 7/16 here. So I just adjust the slide right here to land right on that point. Now I want, well, I'm not quite on that point. I want to raise it up just a little bit. Okay. So now I just take it and I spin. Now I need to be careful. Don't want to spin it because I don't want to bump it into the square. So I just spin it around. So that's my center mark. So on my center mark, again, I always mark things to remember where they're at. So this is my main 1/3 mark. Now, just to double check, this is where I started. I could come to this other side here. I'm going to push it away here. This is where I started. I could come over here and see if it lands at 7/13/16. So I'll hold it, I'll burn 1 inch. So I put it on 1 inch, so I'm going to read 8 13/16. So right there, I'm at 8 3/4. Close enough. I mean, you know, it's not completely exact. Now, I haven't really done a brick sphere that's been this big before, so I'm a little bit torn. You know, normally 2 slots would be the length of a brick, and then you would, you know, so if the 2 slots here are the length of 1 brick, then I want the height of 1 brick to be the width, you know, the height of a brick to be half of what that is. 3/4 of an inch just seems too much. So my thought is to do 5/8 of an inch. I'm kind of splitting the difference because sometimes I do a 1/2 inch, sometimes I, you know, I mean, however though, when you get up in here, things change. You know, so there's never a consistent modality. I mean, as we're bringing these lines up, we're not treating these lines the same as this line. It's not like we've called this a point and this a point, and we've run the spiral here. You know, like we've juxtaposed this, completely moved this on a 90, and then did the same thing here. It just doesn't work that way. So I decided, I'm just using my judgment here, that I'm going to go 5/8 of an inch for my thickness. So I like to do the math ahead of time, and I cheat, you know, just because it's just easier and the human error thing doesn't mess you up. So I have an app on my phone called Construction Master, and what I essentially do is I'm going to turn one of these lights off. Hey, boats. So I just like to run the numbers. Oh, jeez. Sorry, ran into the camera. Sorry about that. To be honest with you, I don't like editing my videos. I don't mind. I've never cut it in the middle and connected the two, but I've cut the front and cut the back, so I apologize for bumping that. I'm not going to get that carried away with editing it. So I want to use a 5/8 run. So I'm going to start my 5/8. I always want to burn so I have something to hold the tape with. So I'm going to burn 3 inches. So it's going to be, my first number is going to be 3 5/8. 3 5/8. That'll be my first mark. Then I'll go to 4 1/4. Then I'll go to, so, okay, this is stupid. Use a calculator, no problems. So 3 inch 5/8 plus 5/8 plus 5/8, 4 7/8. Plus 5/8, 5 1/2. Plus 5/8, 6 1/8. Plus 5/8, 6 3/4. Plus 5/8, 7 3/8. Now, I'm definitely not going to go that high, but I still run the numbers just for the fun of it. 8 inches. But it's not going to be 8 inches because the highest point is 7 13/16. See, I never run the brick pattern all the way up here because it's just too tight to do. So now I'll come here, even though I've got all these marks on here, so it's a little bit confusing. So I'm going to take a fresh area and make my marks. So I hold, this is called burning. I'm burning 3 inches. We do it in construction all the time. When you're pulling a tape 60 feet, you want the guy to be able to hold the tape tight because you got to pull it tight so it doesn't have sag in it. So you normally burn a foot. So you're measuring something that's supposed to be 60'4" and he's burning a foot, you're going to measure 61'4". And then he just puts a death grip on that and you pull that thing tight. But the other thing is to hold this on the edge right here is difficult. So by burning 3 inches, I've got my fingers on the tape, I can pull it tight. I'm going to throw this over so that gravity will help me a little bit. follow a line. So 3 5/8, 4 1/4, 4 7/8, 5 1/2, 6 1/8, 6 3/4. Oh, 7, 7 3/8. So I screwed up. I burned 3 inches, so I still need to go quite a few more inches. So 7 3/8. Then we hit 8. Then we hit. So the true point of my mark is where, see how they're angled, but the point where it intersects with the line is the true point. So 8 5/8. 9 1/4. Is that right? Yeah. 9 1/4. I think that's going to be about it. So 9 1/4 would be 9 7/8. So we'll go ahead and make the mark here just for our help. So that's going to be the height of our brick. Then I need to measure downward, but for the sake of this and for the sake of making the video a little bit shorter, I'm going to just do the top and I'll stop the video. So I adjust this. And I just chase it. So essentially I'm building kind of a longitude and latitude of sorts. These are going up at the center point. These are a true 90 to each other. And that's why I don't want to take it off the Lazy Susan. When I mark the verticals, I don't want to move the position of the sphere. I want it, you know, to be like it is right now. If I took it off the Lazy Susan from doing the vertical marks, then what a nightmare trying to get it perfectly vertical again. I have done it before though. Okay, as we start coming up the face, it starts getting a little bit more difficult. But I have a feeling because this sphere is so the air conditioner just kicked on. So I just keep on going up. But there's going to come a point where this won't work anymore. And I've established, I've done some things like had this, where I use this. But I don't know that works either. Because if I change the positioning of it, it kind of gets screwed up. So you see how this sphere is if the pen tool doesn't touch the sphere, it means that there's a deviation in the face of the sphere. So far we're doing really, really good. So I'm gonna keep on pushing this. But see, like if I did this right here, I would literally have to not move this position at all. Almost what I'd have to do is put a hash mark here that runs out and then make a 90 and make sure that this is sitting on that 90 when I did it, and then this doesn't deviate its position. So I'm not going to mess with that right now. But I could probably pull that off as perfect as this sphere is. So I'm going to bring this back in. So this is interesting. I just learned something. See, what happens is if this sphere is sitting a little bit this way or a little bit that way, with that type of tool, it would vary. Because the tool's not coming straight off the point. So if I had a straight mark that shot out, ranged with this line that went straight across, and then I measured out, so I know I have to be back at this point, at least, it's a 10-inch sphere, so at least probably 5.5 inches. So I'd make a hash mark of 5.5 inches, and I'd run a square and run a 90 and put a mark there. Then if you notice, this turntable has got 90-degree points. So I would put those 90-degree points on both marks. I'd make them here, and I'd make it here. So essentially, heck, just do it. So this isn't 90 degrees right here. I'm using the range of the actual thing. So right there. So I have that mark right there. So this comes out in the face of this. Let's call it, hits at 20, so we'll call that 20. So then we'll go another 5. We'll go another 5 inches. 5 1/4. Okay, so now I have square there. Push this out of the way. I hope this works. So that's square. I established square there. Now that I've got it done here, I can range this and chase this line all the way through. Okay, so now I have a 90 off the face of that. So now I'll take this sphere and I'll take this centerpiece here, take these marks, the 1, got a 1, a 4, I'll put them all on those marks. Okay, so now I have them all on there. So we'll find out if my theory is correct. Part of the problem is we're too close, but the other thing is I can't do the drag thing like I did last time. I mean, I can't let it stretch out. So whatever placement I have of this, it's got to be where it stays. Can't move it forward or backwards. So this may not work out, but I'm going to give it a shot. See how it's moving? So I guess I could C-clamp this to here, and it might work. Leave that there. Oh, jeez. Sorry. Okay, so I have that there. I guess I don't fit into the whole dynamic of immediate. You know, these videos that show everything so quickly. It's going to take me I'm hoping this works, because I might be able to work out some modalities where I can do a quick attachment of this. So the other thing is okay. See how it's not touching? That means there's a variation in the face. So I'm going to come back. So part of the problem here is that the face of the sphere is just a little bit off. So I'm going to kind of cheat. I'm going to bring this down. But I don't think I'm going to like what I get. Interesting. I think in some aspects it actually worked. It's 5/8. It's a little bit tight right here. It's under 5/8. This is the point right here. So that's 9/16, which I can see. So there's a variation in the face here, but it's only like a 1/16 of an inch, which to the eye no one would ever see. But it's just, to me, it's just interesting. I mean, in some ways, it's kind of amazing that we can be that exact. So the other aspect of what I do is I have this as I come along the top. I put this in here so that it doesn't. So I have a sharp angle. So I have a nail, little finish nail that I put in here that's on an angle. I have different sizes. And so I extend this out. So I'd probably have to use a bigger one. This one may not be big enough to execute. Well, no, it'll probably work. So find my mark. But see, I have the same thing going on here. So there's my mark. So I can just chase this around. But it's, again, it's not that simple. I'm looking for 5/8 of an inch. You know, and right here is a spot that I lost that 5/8 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here. So this is, it does get, I mean, depending on how accurate you want to be, it does get rather intense. So I lost my 5/8 there. So I'm going to come across and I'm going to actually physically mark 5/8. And I'm going to adjust it accordingly. And as I get over here, if I'm correct, it starts to get closer. So we're back at 5/8 right there. So where did it get off? So it started to get off about right. So it's on there. It's on here. It's on there. So it started to get off about here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here and freehand it. Keep in mind, this is going to be a herringbone, so there's an element of this that is unseen. Not bad for a guy with shaky freaking hands. Okay, so now we're back in the game. It's like I said in the other video, aim small, miss small. If this is off, the next one's gonna be off, next one's gonna be off. Now when I do this, so I use this piece of plastic that has a hole in it so that this doesn't bury into the clay. So now what I want to do is I want to make some control points around here at 5/8 of an inch, because using that concept, the variation of where the sphere sits in trueness can be problematic. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to mark 5/8 of an inch. And then I'm going to do essentially do a dry run where I'm going to see if the compass is going to hit the marks. Now bear in mind, I wouldn't normally have to do this right now. I would make the marks below, because it doesn't matter whether it's sitting on this square or not, but I can't move it off this lazy Susan at this point, because I still have to make the marks below the center mark, you know, down here. This is all for the purpose of demonstration. So that landed on that mark, so that's a good sign. So yeah, it gets, I mean, depending on how exact you want it, it gets pretty intense. Okay, so I have marks about every fourth point. So I'm going to shoot this in here, put this up there, find the hole. Okay, got to release it just a little bit here. So I'm hitting the mark there. I'm a little bit below the mark. a little bit below the mark. I'm on the mark, on the mark, on the mark, below the mark. So when I get to places like this, I want to humor it. So I'm on the mark, so I'm not on the mark quite right there. So I'm going to release it a little bit. I'm going to hit my mark. So I hit my mark. I'm pretty good there, but I'm going to tighten it a little bit. So I'm kind of cheating. I'm humoring it. So here I'm way below the mark, meaning a 1/16 of an inch. So I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. I'm going to loosen it here. So I loosened it. Now I'm going to tighten it again. I'm going to tighten it again. So these are lines that are lapping over each other. So now I want to see, okay, so I'm right on right there. There are variations of reasons why this could be happening this way. You know, because the hole on top isn't exact. I mean, so much of this is just done by the eye. So everything's hitting right now. So it's just sweet. So I need to loosen it a little bit here. Hit that mark. Need to tighten it a little bit. Have to do it. So what's interesting now is technically, okay, I need to loosen it a lot right here. As I come up, it'll get easier and easier to do this. Like I said, this is a herringbone. Herringbone doesn't have quite the consistent round around. So things will start to clean themselves up. It's almost just like, you know, laying a brick or block. And that one course takes care of the next course to a certain extent. Unless you're laying a block that has rake joints or a brick that has rake joints. A lot can be hidden. But again, it's still easier just to nail it right from the get-go. So I'm going to come in here again, put the 5/8 marks, so I can see where I'm at. And you see that the mark is kind of angled here. So, but where the mark is good is where it touches this line here. I mean, otherwise I'd have to make a 90-degree. Perfect. So this should start humoring itself into itself. Okay, here we go again. Okay, so I'm on the mark there. A little below the mark. A little below the mark. A little below the mark. Yeah, on the mark. A little below the mark. So I'm going to chase this one through right here. A little below, so I'm going to tighten it up a little bit. On the mark there. So notice how so far this one's been a lot easier than the last one. Okay. Okay. So now that I kind of have that established, now I could probably just come in here and make 1 5/8 mark because I kind of brought it into humor. So I'll make a 5/8 mark. And I'll run it again. There we go. So there's that 5/8 mark there. So on that one. So boom. I'm just gonna, oh. One more time. So now, because the angle's different here, I'm going to change out the nail to a nail that's a little bit straighter. But still has an ever so slight angle on it. I'm going to tighten this baby up. Matter of fact, forget that. I'm going to a straight nail. So there's a 5/8 mark right there. I'll chase that around. What the heck? Let's do the last one while we're here. Chances are I won't go that high. Chances are this will be the highest I go. Because my base perfect. So I need to always remember that this is the top of the sear, because the bottom of the sear is not going to nearly be as perfect because I wasn't able to run my marks. So the top of the sear is always this part that I want exposed because it's probably a little bit more perfect than the bottom. So there we go. So now I'm going to make the horizontal marks below. I'm going to lower this. And then I'm just going to have to take it off the Lazy Susan and do this application. Won't be able to do this application because I won't be able to get it perfectly at a 90. So sorry for bumping the camera with my head. You know, this whole, the social media thing's an interesting beast in that there's so many people that are good at editing and doing all that. And yeah, I'm getting better at doing some of this stuff, but by the same token, it's just, this is what I want to do. I don't want to be a 3D sphere editor on the computer. I don't want to especially be a video editor. I mean, it'd be cool to get with somebody and put things together where their talents and my talents, we serve each other. But regardless, maybe I will learn it. But this is what I want to do, and in my mind, I see what I want to do. So I don't always feel the need to learn how to 3D edit when I already see it right here. So other than that, have a good one. There you go.